I never thought a single choice could change my life so completely. It was supposed to be a harmless experiment, a private adventure, something to break the monotony of school life. Yet, as I sat at my desk, brushing my hair and adjusting the pleats of the skirt I had reluctantly borrowed from my sister, I realized just how far I had stepped into unknown territory. My name is Ryan, and I've always been curious. Not in a way that raised eyebrows at school or got me into trouble, but in small, private ways, experimenting with fashion, testing boundaries, and discovering sides of myself that I didn't often show. Crossdressing wasn't a hobby I shared with anyone. It was something secret, tucked away in my room late at night, behind the locked door, with only my reflection as a confidant. School life had been predictable. Classes, friends, occasional arguments, and the constant pressure of grades. But beneath the surface, there was me, Ryan, always questioning, always curious, always yearning to see what it felt like to be someone else, even if only for a few hours. My sister, confident and teasing, had noticed my curiosity months ago. At first, it was playful, jokes and dares meant to embarrass me. But when she suggested I wear one of her skirts to school, her tone was different. Half challenge, half opportunity, and entirely dangerous. I hesitated. The idea terrified me. What if someone saw? What if I became the target of ridicule? And yet, there was a thrill in imagining it. The idea of stepping into someone else's shoes, literally, and exploring the reaction of the world around me was intoxicating. My sister's eyes gleamed with mischief, and I could see she enjoyed testing limits. Just one day, she said, "See how it feels. You might like it." I knew she wasn't wrong. I was curious. But curiosity comes with a cost, and I wasn't prepared for what awaited me. The morning of the experiment, my room was quiet except for the faint hum of the ceiling fan. I had laid out the outfit carefully. The pleated skirt, a simple blouse, and the knee-high socks my sister insisted would complete the look. I stared at myself in the mirror, my reflection unfamiliar yet thrilling. My heart raced as I slipped the skirt over my legs, adjusting the waistband, feeling the unfamiliar fabric against my skin. The blouse was tight, fitted in a way that made me acutely aware of my shoulders and chest. Every detail heightened my sense of vulnerability and excitement simultaneously. As I tied my hair back into a neat ponytail, I couldn't help but notice the small changes in my demeanor. My posture shifted slightly, straighter, more cautious. My eyes lingered longer in the mirror, examining the curve of my face, the subtle changes in expression. I was cautious, nervous, but undeniably drawn to the experience. The school itself seemed different that day. The hallways felt narrower, the whispers louder, and every glance from classmates felt magnified. I kept my head low, backpack slung over one shoulder, moving carefully from class to class. My mind raced with what-ifs, imagining every possible scenario. I was acutely aware of the risk, but also of the thrill. Then came the moment that changed everything. Mrs. Langley, my literature teacher. Sharp-eyed, poised, and never one to miss a detail, she caught me near the lockers. Her gaze swept over me, and I froze, my heart stopping mid-beat. "Ryan?" she asked, tilting her head. Her tone was neither accusatory nor mocking, but something in it sent a shiver down my spine. I stammered, unsure what to say. My face burned red, and my fingers clutched the straps of my backpack like a lifeline. I expected her to scold me, laugh, or send me to the principal's office. But instead, she smiled. A small, knowing smile that both terrified and thrilled me. "Interesting choice," she said softly. "We should talk after class." That single moment, her noticing, acknowledging, and not condemning me, sent a rush through my entire body. It was as if a secret part of me had been illuminated, recognized in a way I hadn't expected. I walked to my desk, trying to focus on the lesson, but my mind was spinning. How had this moment, this simple glance, shifted everything? By lunchtime, whispers had begun to ripple through the classroom. My classmates noticed, of course. They were teenagers, observant and gossip-prone. But instead of ridicule, there was curiosity. Questions in hushed tones, glances that were more intrigued than judgmental. The fear I had felt walking into school that morning began to mix with a strange exhilaration. I was no longer invisible. I was noticed, not just as Ryan, but as this other version of myself, this version that dared to step beyond ordinary boundaries. And then came the invitation that sealed the transformation. A few classmates approached me, asking if I'd join their group for a photo project. They wanted to take pictures for fun, they said, of someone bold and different. My heart raced, and my hands shook, not from fear this time, but from the intoxicating sense of possibility. For the first time, the secret world I had explored in private felt like it might be embraced in public, celebrated rather than condemned. As the final bell rang, I left the classroom with a whirlwind of emotions swirling in my chest. The day had begun as a quiet experiment in curiosity, but now it felt like the start of something far bigger. Mrs. Langley's smile, the whispered comments of classmates, the photo invitation, they were all signs that stepping into this new persona had consequences I hadn't anticipated. And yet, for the first time, I felt alive in a way I hadn't before. Walking home, skirt swaying slightly with each step, I realized something fundamental. Life had changed in a single day. The skirt, once a symbol of risk and embarrassment, had become a key to attention, curiosity, and a side of myself I could no longer ignore. The question now wasn't whether I could return to ordinary life, but whether I even wanted to. And as I passed my sister's house, where she watched from the window with a triumphant smirk, I knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow, the experiment would continue. And who knew? Maybe it would take me even further than I had ever imagined. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. Every morning, slipping into the borrowed skirts and carefully chosen blouses felt like stepping into a new identity. The first day had been terrifying, but exhilarating. The balance of fear and thrill set my heart racing, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. My sister's mischievous grin echoed in my mind as I prepared each outfit, her whispered advice guiding me. Own it. Confidence makes all the difference. At home, I experimented with every detail. The soft sway of the skirt, the subtle curve of the blouse, the way my hair framed my face. Each adjustment made me feel more like someone else, yet somehow more like myself. I practiced my posture, my walk, the tilt of my head. Small things became enormous symbols of control and vulnerability. It was both thrilling and terrifying to see how much power a simple outfit could wield over perception. School became a stage. Each corridor, each classroom, was a performance space where I tested reactions. Whispers followed me, glances lingered, and every encounter was charged with suspense. My classmates were curious, some approving, others unsure. I noticed subtle changes in their behavior, the way they smiled, the jokes they made, even the way they looked at me. Every interaction was a risk. One misstep, one wrong look, and the delicate balance could collapse. Mrs. Langley became a central figure in this intricate dance. Her initial acknowledgement had been subtle, but now, she observed more closely. Sometimes her gaze followed me during lectures, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Other times, she would offer a small, knowing smile when I answered a question correctly or walked confidently past her desk. Her presence was a constant mix of reassurance and tension, a reminder that the line between admiration and exposure was thin. Internally, I wrestled with conflicting emotions: shame and excitement, fear and empowerment, uncertainty and daring, all battled within me. I worried about ridicule, about being found out in ways that could humiliate me. Yet, at the same time, each approving glance, each small acknowledgement from my peers and Mrs. Langley fueled a growing sense of liberation. I was discovering a part of myself that thrived under attention, that relished the thrill of being noticed, and yet trembled at the possibility of judgment. The transformation extended beyond clothing. I experimented with makeup, subtle touches that accentuated my features without drawing overt attention. A hint of eyeliner, a sweep of blush, mascara carefully applied to make my eyes seem larger and more expressive. Each application was a ritual, a blend of nervousness and exhilaration. I could feel the change in my posture, the way I moved, the confidence that began to radiate from small, seemingly insignificant details. Even lunch breaks became arenas of suspense. Friends and curious classmates would invite me to sit with them, their voices hushed, their interest palpable. "You look different," one friend whispered, eyes wide. "In a good way," added another, trying to reassure me. My heart pounded, not from embarrassment this time, but from the undeniable rush of attention. The more I embraced this persona, the more I realized how addictive the experience was. Yet, every thrill carried risk. Rumors could spread. A single photograph could turn a private experiment into public spectacle. I found myself constantly scanning the room, watching for cameras, phones, even casual observers whose interest might tip the balance between curiosity and exposure. The line between self-expression and social danger became razor-thin, and I had to navigate it carefully, learning to manage reactions while exploring my growing confidence. One afternoon, Mrs. Langley approached me after class. Her voice was soft but commanding. "Ryan, I've noticed your confidence has changed. You're more assertive. Have you considered participating in the school's talent showcase? You have a presence worth sharing." My breath caught. Public performance? The idea terrified me. Yet it also thrilled me. This was no longer about private experimentation. It was about taking the persona I had been crafting into the spotlight. My hands shook as I nodded slowly, caught between fear and excitement. The next days became a series of preparation and anticipation. I experimented with more outfits, practiced walking, gestures, and subtle expressions in front of mirrors, and rehearsed responses to questions or teasing from peers. Every detail mattered. The tilt of a head, the placement of hands, the timing of a smile. I felt the thrill of control, but also the underlying anxiety that one mistake could unravel everything. Rumors began to circulate, some approving, others skeptical. Whispers in the hallways, small comments in class, and even quiet murmurs during lunch made me hyper-aware. Each encounter was a test, each observation a subtle challenge. I became acutely attuned to the energy in the room, reading reactions, measuring curiosity, and refining my persona to match the expectations and the thrill of attention. And then came the unexpected twist. A note slipped into my locker, and signed but unmistakably daring. "Your confidence is growing. But can you handle what comes next?" My pulse raced as I read it, feeling a mix of exhilaration and dread. The message was a reminder. While attention was thrilling, the stakes had risen. Every choice, every outfit, every glance carried the potential for triumph or exposure. By the end of the week, I had fully embraced the duality of my identity. At home, I was Ryan, careful and private, reflecting on the risks and thrills of the week. At school, I was Alexa, bold, poised, and increasingly confident in the skirts, blouses, and subtle makeup that had become my signature. The thrill of secrecy, the adrenaline of attention, and the anticipation of the talent showcase created a constant tension, blending excitement with fear in a way that was almost intoxicating. The suspense escalated daily. Would someone capture a photo? Would Mrs. Langley push too far? Would my classmates accept or ridicule me? Each moment carried weight, and every interaction heightened the emotional stakes. I was walking a fine line between discovery and admiration, between anxiety and exhilaration, between secrecy and the intoxicating possibility of becoming the class star. The talent showcase had arrived, and with it, a hurricane of nerves and excitement. Every step down the crowded hallways, every whispered comment, every curious glance made my pulse pound. The duality of my life, Ryan at home, Alexa in public, had never felt more pronounced. My carefully constructed persona was about to face the ultimate test. Backstage, I adjusted my outfit one last time. The skirt swayed perfectly, the blouse fit like it was tailored for me, and the mascara-enhanced eyes reflected in the mirror with a bold intensity one almost didn't recognize as my own. My hands trembled slightly, betraying the anxiety beneath the confident exterior I projected. I reminded myself, confidence was the key. Own it. Every eye in the auditorium would be watching, and any slip could expose the secret I had fought so hard to protect. Mrs. Langley appeared beside me, her presence commanding but gentle. "You're ready," she whispered. "You have something unique. Show them who you are." Her encouragement, meant to calm, instead ignited a fresh wave of tension. The risk of being seen, truly seen, was higher than ever. And yet, the thrill was undeniable. As the performance began, I walked onto the stage, every movement measured, every glance intentional. The spotlight highlighted the careful transformation, the sway of the skirt, the subtle curves of the blouse, the elegance I had cultivated through hours of practice. The audience's reactions were immediate, murmurs of surprise, whispers of curiosity, and then, slowly, applause. My heart soared even as my stomach twisted with anxiety. Halfway through, the unexpected happened. A flash from a phone camera caught me off guard. My heart skipped a beat. The thought of someone capturing evidence of my private experiment becoming public sent adrenaline coursing through me. I tried to stay in character, to maintain the poise I had rehearsed, but the tension was palpable. Every smile, every gesture felt magnified under the threat of exposure. Then, in the wings, Mrs. Langley's expression shifted slightly, a subtle frown, almost imperceptible. My pulse quickened. Was she concerned? Was she about to intervene? The uncertainty drove me further into the persona I had crafted. I moved with grace, every step calculated, every pose intentional, as if to prove that I belonged here, despite the chaos brewing around me. The performance's climax was my solo moment, a dramatic monologue I had prepared with trembling anticipation. Words flowed from my lips, blending confidence and vulnerability, as the audience watched, captivated. The line between Ryan and Alexa blurred completely. I felt exposed, yet empowered, as if the persona I had nurtured in secret had come alive and demanded recognition. But the real twist came when a voice from the audience, a classmate I hadn't expected, called out, "Wait, is that Ryan?" The room froze. My heart lurched. The secret I had guarded so carefully was teetering on the edge of discovery. Murmurs rippled through the audience, and the spotlight seemed to intensify the scrutiny. Every pair of eyes felt like a judgment, every whisper a potential threat. In that moment, I realized the true stakes. This wasn't just about a performance. It was about identity, acceptance, and risk. The thrill of attention collided with the terror of exposure. I had to make a choice: retreat and risk losing the confidence I had built, or embrace the persona fully and face whatever consequences might come. I took a deep breath, steadied my hands, and continued the performance, doubling down on every gesture, every expression. The audience's attention sharpened, captivated not just by the act, but by the sheer presence and charisma I exuded. Mrs. Langley's frown softened into a subtle, approving smile. The tension was still there, electric, but I had claimed control. As the final lines of my performance echoed through the auditorium, the applause erupted. Thunderous, genuine, and overwhelming. I had survived the moment of potential exposure, and in doing so, transformed the risk into triumph. Classmates who had whispered behind my back were now applauding openly. Even the skeptical peers were nodding, impressed by the poise and confidence I displayed. Backstage, I sank into a chair, trembling with a mixture of relief, exhilaration, and lingering anxiety. The secret of my dual identity remained intact for now, but I knew the landscape had shifted. The audience had seen Alexa, the persona I had carefully crafted, and their reactions, whether supportive, curious, or judgmental, would shape the next phase of my journey. A final twist came unexpectedly. A note slipped into my hand, identical in style to the one from before. It read, "You've performed brilliantly, but remember, the next challenge will be harder. Are you ready to face it?" My pulse surged. The thrill of transformation, the tension of secrecy, and the intoxicating allure of attention were far from over. The climax had ended, but the suspense, the stakes, and the emotional drama were escalating towards something even bigger. The auditorium buzzed with applause long after my performance ended, but I barely heard it. My mind was racing, replaying every glance, every whisper, every flash of a camera that had caught me mid-step. The thrill of attention still coursed through my veins, but beneath it lingered a gnawing uncertainty. Had someone truly recognized me? Would a single photo unravel the delicate balance I had worked so hard to maintain? Backstage, the other performers were congratulating each other, laughing and joking, but I barely registered their words. My hands were shaking, heart still pounding from the adrenaline rush. I clutched the note I had received earlier, reading it over and over. "You've performed brilliantly, but remember, the next challenge will be harder. Are you ready to face it?" The words were both thrilling and terrifying. Who had left it? Was it another student testing me, or someone else entirely, someone with knowledge of my secret? The ambiguity gnawed at me, blending excitement and fear into a heady mixture I could neither control nor ignore. I tried to calm myself, to breathe normally, but every sound, the footsteps of fellow students, the shuffle of papers, even the faint echo of laughter, set my nerves on edge. The persona I had so carefully crafted, Alexa, felt both comforting and fragile. If exposed now, the humiliation would be public, irreversible, and yet the allure of this new identity was impossible to resist. Suddenly, the backstage curtain shifted, and Mrs. Langley appeared, her expression unreadable. She handed me a small envelope, her eyes lingering on mine with an intensity that made my stomach twist. "This is for you," she said softly, then turned and walked away, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph, me, on stage, mid-performance, captured perfectly in my skirt and blouse, every detail of my transformation visible. The edges of the photo were marked with a faint smudge, almost like a fingerprint. I froze, my mind spinning. Someone had taken this picture deliberately, and now it was in my possession, but whose hands had held it before mine? A sudden knock at the backstage door made me jump. My pulse shot through the roof. "Alexa?" A voice called softly, unfamiliar yet oddly familiar. My head snapped toward the door, but no one was there. I stepped closer, heart hammering, but the hallway beyond was empty. Was it a prank? A student testing my nerves? Or had someone seen the photo and intended to use it against me? I clutched the photograph tighter, the paper crumpling slightly in my grip. The auditorium's cheers still echoed faintly in my ears, a haunting reminder that the world outside had witnessed me in a new light. The line between admiration and exposure was thinner than ever. I realized that my secret was no longer entirely under my control. The risk of discovery had become intertwined with the exhilaration of my performance. And then my phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen. "Impressive show. But now, the real test begins. Be ready." No sender, no name, just the words, dripping with both challenge and warning. I sank onto a chair, trembling, my mind racing with questions and possibilities. Who was behind these notes? Was it Mrs. Langley, testing me further? A student who had recognized me? Or someone else entirely, watching from the shadows, orchestrating the next phase of this unexpected journey? The photograph in my hand, the anonymous message, the empty hallway, it all combined into a moment of suspense so intense that I could barely breathe. The exhilaration of performance, the thrill of attention, and the looming threat of exposure had merged into a single, undeniable truth. My life had changed, and nothing would ever be the same. As I stared at the photo one last time, I realized the full weight of the situation. Alexa was no longer just a persona, a temporary experiment. She was becoming real, a part of me that could not be undone. And with that realization came the ultimate tension, the uncertainty of what would happen next. Would my secret be exposed? Would I embrace this identity fully, or would fear force me back into the safety of Ryan? The screen fades to black in my mind as I sit there, heart pounding, the photograph trembling in my hand. The applause still lingers faintly, echoing the thrill of the moment, but the unknown looms larger, heavier, impossible to ignore. The next chapter is coming, and I am caught between fear and desire, secrecy and revelation, Ryan and Alexa. And then the story pauses, leaving only questions. Who is watching? What challenge awaits? Will my secret survive, or will Alexa be exposed to the world? The audience is left hanging, hearts racing, minds spinning, eagerly anticipating the next episode.